The cover art of a game is more important than you think. An ideal one should portray the gist of a game in one still image and spark a potential buyer's interest. Because of this very condensed nature, you are even more limited in showing the player what your game has to offer, at least compared to a trailer. It's only natural then that on most covers you find iconic characters in the spotlight. Mario is on every Mario game's cover, Far Cry always features their villains, and in case of Monster Hunter, it mostly features the game's flagship monster, an iconic monster that represents the game better than any other and should capture a future hunter's interest. Monster Hunter celebrated its 20th anniversary this year, and combined with the impending release of Monster Hunter Wilds next year, the series is back on everybody's mind. So what better moment to have a look back at the stars of Monster Hunter's past and see how they compare to each other, because boy, did these creatures evolve over the past 2 decades. Before we get started, I just wanted to clarify this. I'll be talking about different versions of these monsters, so variants, powered-up forms and even iterations of multiple games are all at play here. I wanted to have something to talk about monsters I already covered, and I feel these influence my opinions on several occasions as well. Lastly, I know this video will not make everybody happy, but that's just the nature of having different opinions. I want to make this abundantly clear. With the exception of the last place, and maybe the second last, I like all of these monsters, and for good reasons. Flagships tend to be the best designed monsters of a generation, which is why the developers even chose to put them on the cover of the game. So making this ranking was incredibly hard, considering I was ranking a bunch of S-tier monsters and one F-tier one. But yeah, let's not waste time any longer and get started. Oh boy, this is kinda exciting. I haven't fought many of these monsters in a long time. I'm kind of excited. Okay, who's the first guy? Oh. Oh. Starting off strong, we have a color swap of a Rathalos. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, compared to all the others on this list, he sticks out like a sore thumb. I despised his fight in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and in World he was incredibly bland. The positive things I can say about him is that I like the look of his armor, and in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate it was the armor set that carried me through high rank. Doesn't however change the fact that he is a Rathalos that flies a lot more and stays longer in the air. For a non-ranged player, it is very frustrating or boring to fight him. Really depends on whether you packed flash pods or not, and if he gets immune to them. Yeah, sorry Blue Wrath, but you suck. Already a massive improvement over the previous entry, Kushala Daora is an Elder Dragon which controls the wind and uses it to create tornadoes and wind blasts. He is a cool monster, held back by some personal grudges of mine. But first some positives. I adore his design, because while basic shape-wise, the steel look is very unique and makes him seem much more unnatural compared to other monsters. Pair this with the ability to control wind, and you have a great monster concept-wise. His weapon designs have a cool theme representing different animals like the Kraken insect glaive or the Cobra hammer. And his high rank armor is alright, but his G rank armor is very stylish, giving you an ancient look. Especially the beta set in World reminds me a lot of Goldbeard Cedeos armor in Monster Hunter 3U, representing Anubis. His theme is cool, but nothing special to me. But fight-wise, especially in World, he kinda falls apart. Like Azoraphos, he has a tendency to fly a lot, and this gets paired with an incredibly annoying wind aura, which gets my personal award for most enjoyable game mechanic known to man. Sounds pretty negative so far, doesn't it? Well, regarding the fight, I must say, in Rise he's decently fun to fight, because he doesn't fly that much. He lands way more and gives you ample time to hit him. He even got his old weakness to poison back, which means you can counter him pretty well in this game. Risen Kushala Daora though, he's on another level. While being arguably the easiest Risen, he's very enjoyable to fight, so much so in fact, that I considered pushing Kushala a few spots ahead just because of this version. But alas, his base form still lacks too much for me to justify that. Tigrex is simple. Simple and good. His design works for that. He is powerful, fast and aggressive, and that's all you need to know about him. In cutscenes and in the environments, he always looks for a fight. He charges relentlessly, jumps and spins around, and roars so loud that it damages hunters standing too close. This is also represented by his theme, expressing raw power more than anything. I like this simplicity. It makes for a focused fight, with just you and the monster throwing everything you got at each other, without any fancy elements or gimmicks. For the versions I fought of him, I definitely enjoy his world iteration the most, because I feel he fits perfectly in this game. The version in Rise on the other hand struggles to be a threat, because of the verticality the combat provides, which makes his charges a non-threat. Brute Tigrex is cool, but gets a bit annoying on refights because the screaming gets a bit excessive. And it's a darn shame I haven't had the chance to fight Molten Tigrex yet, because he seems to be an amazing fight. Excluding the Greatsword and the Master Rank armor, I can't say I enjoy the equipment of him design-wise, but it's always pretty powerful, so at least he has that going for him. But yeah, I respect Tigrex. Definitely being very unique, Misotsune is a leviathan which uses the mucus it generates to produce a defense mechanism, consisting of bubbles. Yep, bubbles. Design-wise, I think this monster knocks it out of the park. It is beautiful, and I especially like the fox-like features it has. The bubble mechanic is also exclusive to this monster and is pretty fun, giving it the ability to make the player slip and stumble like an old cartoon. It's hilarious, especially in Generations. His fight is also accompanied by a beautiful theme, which is a joy to listen to. But I don't know if it's just me, but Miso just isn't that threatening, and this is something that kind of needs to be there for a monster. I also don't find the fight to be that difficult. Lastly, the armor just isn't my style. But the weapons bear a pretty cool Japanese aesthetic, so it gets saved by that. Here's where I want to bring attention to Apex Mizutsune in Rise, since it's the closest thing I did to Soul Seer. Especially the emergency fight is very cool, showing what a threatening Mizu can really look like. But yeah, the base form, I always kind of feel bad killing it. Is it weird to think that?
This is where it dwells quietly, blending into its environment. And if any should appear to disturb its peaceful slumber, they will soon find out that this mistake will cost them their lives.
Ah, the ambassador from Monster Hunter Frontier, and what I regard as its flagship, Espinos. His announcement definitely hyped me up as much as everyone else. And don't get me wrong here, mechanically, Espinos is brilliant and unlike anything else in Monster Hunter. I love his personality, being a lazy wyvern that's always asleep when you start the hunt, and you must wake him up in order to engage in combat. His shell is incredibly hard, which makes damaging him in this stage a lot harder. He also feels very sluggish during this state, not really putting up much of a fight. But then he enrages. His anger softens up his skin, finally making him vulnerable, but at a cost. He's much more aggressive during his stage, dashing around and relentlessly bombarding you with fireballs, which also apply poison and paralysis. Blaming Espinas is very similar, although the nukes definitely give him an extra moment of anxiety. It's incredibly fun and hectic to fight him, which also is reflected in Sunbreak's theme, being an absolute bop. And he's full of personality, so in this department he knocks it out of the park. So where's the problem then? Well, although I have said multiple times that I don't mind simplistic designs, monsters that follow this design principle have a hard time competing the higher entries on this list. And it's no different here. Espinas' design isn't groundbreaking, and the same applies for his weapons. I do like the armor and especially the body armor, but all in all I can't place him any higher than this. Still, I'd love to see Espinas in future games from now on. Okay, hear me out. Zinogre definitely deserves being a fan favorite. His biology and fight design are top tier. The idea of a wolf that has a symbiotic relationship with thunderbugs and gets his powers from these living in his fur in exchange for protection is genius. This lore beautifully transfers into gameplay. Especially in Iceborne, Zinogre's attacks look beautiful, and I think he is the returning monster that benefited the most from the port in the newest gen. The dynamic of the fight is as follows. He starts off slow and not that dangerous, and you have lots of opportunities to damage him. But while this is going on, he interrupts his attacks with howling, signaling his presence to the thunderbugs in the area to come to him. And through this, he starts to collect the bugs in his fur and charges up, until finally that's the moment all hell breaks loose. He's much faster, stronger and deadlier. He chains attacks together and relentlessly pursues the player. And should the player still manage to get hits in, he enrages and charges up even further. In Rise you can notice Zinogre's eyes glowing blue in this state, which is an awesome detail. So why then did I put the number 1 voted monster of all time, by the community at least, in the 15th spot? Well, there's something about the design that bothers me, but not in terms of simplicity, since Zinogre's design definitely is not simple. But, oh well, let's say the extra claws he gets when he enrages or his color, they're just not my favorite. It makes Stygian Zinogre all the better, because red and black plus grey is an awesome color scheme, and his fight is even more crazy. His equipment also is not my favorite, I guess it's not my style. The one exception is the longsword, which looks awesome. But there's something else that needs to be mentioned. His banger theme. His theme is magnificent, it's always epic and fast-paced, which also makes his fights epic and fast-paced for me. So no, Zinogre is not my favorite monster, but I'm also not a hipster and I can definitely see the appeal.
The trail seems to stop here. Arathalos!
The basic red dragon is this high up? Why? I'll tell you, I kind of had an evolution of opinions about Rathalos. When I started in Monster Hunter 3U, I really disliked him. He was constantly flying, gave me wind pressure and just all in all was a nuisance to fight. This opinion was definitely not changed when I fought him in high and G rank or his variations. He was in way too many quests and always interrupted other fights. It got a bit better in World though. He still had most of his attributes, which made him annoying in the old world, but with many options to counter flying monsters like attacking from the high ground, the much more versatile flash bombs, and later the clutch claw, it gave the player much more opportunities to actually do something to Rathalos while he was in the air. The flying also felt less clunky in this game. But finally, we have Rathalos in Rise, which was a huge glow up in my opinion. He spends much more time on the ground, but is also much more aggressive and seamlessly transitions between flying and attacking from the ground. This paired with the new great attacks made Rathalos an amazing fight, especially in Master Rank. He really works as a serious mascot, with a very recognizable design and has a great armor and weapon design, especially the G-Rank armor set. So yeah, over time the series mascot kind of grew on me.
Now here is a creature with smugness and guts, haughty and arrogant. Look as it struts. Enter its turf and suffer your fate. Watch as its eyes fill with rancor and hate. Don't try to run. It's already too late.
Next up, we have Nargacuga. From a monster design perspective, I adore him. The sleek body, paired with the blade wings and the spiked tail, fits him perfectly. He truly feels like a ninja. The glowing red eyes in his enraged state stick out as well. I just love when the enraged state of the monster has a clear visual indicator. It adds a lot more tension to this part of the fight. Another detail I like is when you break his head. When you break a head in Monster Hunter, most monsters lose part of their horn or a few scales get broken off. But in case of Nargacuga, you break his left eye, and when he enrages, only the right one glows up. Oh yeah, and his roar. Fight-wise, he is again simple, but in a unique way. His moves revolve around pounces and jumping out of the player's vision to surprise him. In the older games, many of his moves were easier to iframe dodge than most of the others, which meant you would shift from dodging out of the way to dodging through the tail attacks. Especially in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, I found that very enjoyable. His armor supports this playstyle even more, with it providing skills that improve the dodge of the player. The design of the armor does not speak to me, but his weapons are great in every game, and I like the use of naga feathers on them. His theme really fits the Hunter Stalk's prey motif, and I like World's version the best. Lastly, I would like to mention Lucent Nargacuga in Sunbreak, since he is my favorite version of the fight. I was blown away when I first fought him in Sunbreak, by how fun the encounter was and how visually stunning the whole area and this monster were, especially since the game was primarily for the Switch. Naga really has a soft spot in my heart. Let's keep the beautiful monsters going. When it comes to pretty monsters in the franchise, Velkhana is one of, if not the first monster I think of. The posture and design just come off as elegant and almost divine. The developer stated that the design was partly inspired by birds, and you can definitely see that, especially with the wings. One would think that such a beautiful creature could not be that dangerous, but you'd be wrong. Velkhana fights very elegantly, like a fencer, quickly pelting you with tail stabs and ice beams, which leave mist around the area that forms a wall of ice when it's hit by said beams. The real fight, however, starts when Velkhana gets her ice armor, because it is then that it changes appearance from an elegant griffin to an armored frost dragon that coats the area in ice. My favorite version of the fight has to be the arch-tempered Velkhana, simply because it's a great challenge and keeps you on your toes. Velkhana's armor and weapons look amazing, and Frostcraft is a really cool skill I love to use when I play Greatsword. Something else I enjoy about Velkhana is the role she plays in Iceborne's story, with her really being built up as your rival and getting their own siege quest, which is more fun than the Zora Magdaros siege in base world. And all of that gets paired with beautiful themes that really set the mood for this encounter, with them being very elegant and intense. Velkhana definitely peaked in world. The Sunbreak version is alright, but it feels much less special. The ice effects alone in this fight carry it to the 12th place.
Corpses strewn about below foreshadow an unexpected arrival. Before long, golden blades fall from the sky, tearing everything to shreds. With the blinding sun behind its back, the savage sniper appears. Those who try to evade their inevitable deaths by going in for the attack will only succeed at fulfilling the creature's cravings. As it soars high into the sky and marks another golden grave.
It took a while before I could finally fight this monster, one I was very curious about since in terms of appearance he does not stand out compared to the other 4th gen flagships, but I was nevertheless excited to fight him in Sunbreak. Boy was I in for a treat. Seregios may seem just like another flying wyvern at first glance, but he's incredibly unique when inspected further. His fighting style is quick and deadly, with him comboing his bleeding debuff with fast follow-up attacks. His feet resemble those of birds of prey, which matches his swoop attacks. Once he gets angry, his razor-sharp scales spread out across his body, giving him a pinecone-like appearance, from a sleek aerodynamic design to an imposing battle stance, ready to fire them out. His theme could be best described as depicting a surprise attack, starting abruptly and keeping the tension up. Seregios' armor and weapons are just beautiful, and Bladescale Hone is super fun to use. Seregios as a package is severely underappreciated in my opinion, since even if I try to think of something wrong, there's nothing that bothers me about him. Which makes it an even bigger crime that he hasn't gotten any stronger variants or subspecies besides the Apex Seregios in 4 Ultimate. Capcom, fix that! And really, he is underrated. Please use him more in the upcoming games. Thank you for watching so far. As you can tell, we are not done with the flagship monsters yet. In fact, there are 10 more to go. But after looking at the time I was already at, I didn't want to make a 1 hour long video. So, the next part will come soon. Stay tuned.